So for this video, I am going to explain on chapter 2, which is about cell structure and function. So under topic 2, there are several subtopics. The first subtopic, which is 2.1, is on prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So under 2.1, I am going to state the three principles of cell theory, and also I am going to explain the structures of prokaryotic and also eukaryotic cells. So what is cell? So Robert Hooke has observed a Koch sample which looks like a tiny empty box structure, sort of like the structure of a cell. He also have concluded that a cell is a basic unit of living things. Cell theory have been introduced by these three individuals. They have stated that number one, cell is a building block of structure in living things, which means in every living things must contain at least one cell. Number two, new cells come from pre-existing cells, which means that the cells can divide to form a new cell. And number three, DNA of a cell is passed from cell to cell during cell division. And lastly, number four, cell is the functioning unit of life, which means for a living organism to function properly, it needs cell. So there are two types of cells that are based on structural organization, which are prokaryotic cells and also eukaryotic cells. So example of prokaryotic cells are bacteria and cyanobacteria. So the main features of prokaryotic cells is they lack a membrane-bounded nucleus, and their genetic material is not enclosed by a nuclear membrane, so they lie freely in the cytoplasm in a region called nucleoid. This diagram shows the structure of prokaryotic cells. So basically, a prokaryotic cell consists of a flagellum, plasmid DNA, chromosomal DNA, ribosomes, cytoplasm, capsule, cell wall, and also plasma membrane, and not forgetting a pili. So in this slide, I am going to explain on the structures of prokaryotic cells. So in prokaryotic cell, it contains several structures, include chromosomal DNA, which are single and circular, while another structure is a plasmid DNA, it's a small circular, and also a double-stranded DNA, which are similar to the chromosomal DNA. Another structure of a prokaryotic cell is the flagella, which are a long thread-like structure for its locomotion. Next is the pili, which is shorter and straighter than flagella, and it is used to adhere to the surface and also to each other. And the next structure is the capsule, which is a gel-like layer outside the cell wall of a prokaryotic cell, and it is also used to adhere to a surface or to each other and also to provide protection. So next is about the eukaryotic cells. So examples of eukaryotic cells are protists, fungi, plants, and also animals. So there are several main features of eukaryotic cells, which is the first one, they have a membrane-bounded nucleus, and its DNA is enclosed in a nuclear membrane. Besides that, it has many membrane-bounded organelles. So the organelles later I am going to explain. And each of the organelle is a small structure suspended in a cytoplasm that conducts certain functions in a cell. In this slide, as you can see, it shows the structure of eukaryotic cells. As you can see, it is much more complex than a structure of prokaryotic cells. Okay, so after we have observed the overall structure of a eukaryotic cell, I am going to explain about the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells in this slide. So the first differences is in terms of its cell size, where prokaryotic cell is much more smaller than the eukaryotic cells. And the next differences is in terms of its nucleus. So for the prokaryotic cell, it has no membrane-bounded nucleus, which means that its DNA lies freely in the cytoplasm. To be specific, in the nucleoid, while the eukaryotic cell has a membrane-bounded nucleus, which means its DNA is enclosed by a nuclear membrane. The next feature which differentiate between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell is in terms of its genetic material or its DNA. For prokaryotic cell, its DNA is circular and it is not associated with histone protein. While for the eukaryotic cells, its DNA is linear and it is associated with histone protein. So what is histone protein? I am going to explain in the next couple of slides. So in this video, it shows two diagrams, which is a circular DNA and also a linear DNA. So for this slide, it shows how the histone protein is associated with the DNA of a eukaryotic cells. So as you can see, the histone protein helps to coil and compact the DNA strand to form a chromosome so that the chromosome can be compacted in the nucleus of a cell. So other differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells is in terms of its organelles. So for prokaryotic cells, it has no membrane-bounded organelles, and while for eukaryotic cells, it has many membrane-bounded organelles, includes chloroplast, mitochondria, and another differences is in terms of its ribosomes. So prokaryotic cells has a smaller ribosomes compared to eukaryotic cells, and another differences is in terms of its cell wall. So the prokaryotic cells compose mainly of peptidoglycan and murein, or we can call it as amino acids, while eukaryotic cells compose mainly of cellulose for plant cell and chitin for fungi. And the last differences for this slide is in terms of its structure of flagella. For prokaryotic cells, it has simple and lack of 9+2 microtubules arrangement, while eukaryotic cells, it is much more complex, which means it has 9+2 microtubules arrangement. Okay, so probably some of you are wondering what is 9+2 microtubules arrangement. So in this slide, I am going to explain about the structure of the flagella. So as you can see, when we cross-section the flagella, we can see from above the arrangement of the microtubules. So what is 9+2 arrangement? The 9 means there are 9 pairs of microtubules arranged surrounding a 2 pair of central pair of microtubules. So that is called 9+2 microtubules arrangement, which is inside a flagella of a eukaryotic cell. Other differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells is in terms of its cell division. So for prokaryotic cells, they divide mostly by binary fission, while eukaryotic cells, they divide by mitosis, meiosis, or even sometimes both. And the next differences is the types of organism, where prokaryotic cell consists of unicellular or sometimes it have filamentous organism, while for eukaryotic cells, it consists of unicellular, filamentous, or multicellular organisms. So in this slide, I am going to explain on the similarities between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So basically, both cells are bounded by a plasma membrane to control the in and out of the substances in the cell. And next is both have DNA for its heredity, and both have cytoplasm, which is a place for a chemical reaction to take place, and a site for its organelles. And also both have ribosomes to synthesize its proteins.